jerk. That was Odell Beckem for the Giants yesterday afternoon at Meadowlands against Josh Norman. Now, Norman's a clown, too. He thinks he's Willie Brown. Odell Beckem is 30 times the player Josh Norman is. So let's throw that in the mix right out of the gate. But Beckem acted like a complete jerk yesterday afternoon at the Meadowlands. Not only did he drop passes right out of the gate, he's yelling in pregame. He's fighting left and right. He's getting personal foul penalties every time we turn around. A dangerous headbutt, which probably will cost him a game from a suspension scenario when he headbutted Norman later on in the second half, and just acted horrifically in the course of this game. And this is a guy that has had a golden deal here so far in New York City. Everybody likes him. He's fun to watch. He's got a lot of ability. He's an acrobat. He's basically he's a trapeze artist, and he's a Spider-Man catching footballs. He was a big star at LSU, star on campus. He comes to New York. He's on highlight reels, YouTube. The whole world loves him, and now you get a chance to see his true colors with his performance yesterday. As bad as you're ever going to see with him acting the way he acted. You cannot act under any circumstances in that situation. If Norman wants to act like an idiot, you know what? He's a defensive back. He had a fight with Cam Newton during training camp, and nobody likes him either. But they're also 13-0. They can afford a loss. That's not the end of the world. This team cannot, the Giants, and as a result, Beckem was discombobulated, not in the flow, all wrapped up in himself instead of the team, and did a terrible, terrible job. And just, you can't act like that. And then after the game, he did nothing that you like. He acted like a complete buffoon. He went Belichick on you, refused to acknowledge that he acted terribly, just did a terrible, terrible job after the game, saying, he basically didn't want to comment on how poorly he behaved, move on, blah, 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 did not really take responsibility, just awful. I mean, and then Coughlin, who should know better, who is Mr. My Way or the Highway, who grew up with Lombardi and Parcells, and then he's acting like an idiot, Coughlin. It doesn't take him out of the game, doesn't give him a blow to make sure he behaves properly. Coughlin, a desperate man trying to win games, doesn't issue any discipline. All right, you want to take the easy way out or knock the officials, as what Tony Dungy did last night on TV? That is really taking the easy way out. You knocking the officials is taking the easy way out, and he did that from that standpoint, and he knocked the officials. Did Terry McCauley's crew, basically do themselves proud? No. I mean, something should have occurred. Somebody should have been thrown out of this game long before they were. I'll be the first to admit that. But as far as the whole situation with Coughlin's got to know better. You must get him out of the game, Tom. What are you doing to me here? I mean, my gosh, I know you're desperate. You're down 35-7. He can ignite a comeback. I know he made a catch on 4th and 5. I understand. But there comes a point you get him sit for a series. Just tell him that, you know what, this is irresponsible, and you're not going to stand for it. Eli is not that kind of guy who's going to do anything. That's Eli. He's just not that kind of guy that's going to say anything Eli should do. You think you do that in Joe Montana's huddle? Or Unitas' huddle? How about Autogram? I mean, geez, you think you do that like a jerk? Brady? You think you do that with Brady's huddle? There's not a chance you would do that in those situations whatsoever. And Eli didn't say anything either. Nobody took control of the situation. It got worse as the game went along. I mean, the headbutt going to cost him a game, and it's awful. I mean, that was really poor behavior. I don't blame Rivera. Rivera made a good point. He said, you know what, I would have taken Norman out when, in fact, Beckman was taken out of the game. And that's a fair point. Beckem was more the instigator than Norman was. Norman was certainly no angel. And again, I think he's a big clown. But, I mean, Rivera did the right thing. I would have done it the same way he did it. I would have sat there and I would have I would have not taken Norman out until I see Beckem on the sideline. As soon as I see Beckem out, Norman comes too. But, I mean, just a really disgraceful all the way around by the football giants. I mean, and listen, they had a lot of guys over the, LT's behavior off the field over the years was atrocious. The Giants have looked the other way at times, like all franchises have to do to make deals with these players nowadays. But no, I saw LT play every game he ever played. I've never seen anything like that. I mean, that was as bad as it gets in that sequence yesterday. Oh, bothered the heck out of me. Beckem. And then he's got to give himself some accountability after the game. And he read the quotes. Nothing. I mean, nothing out of Beckem. I mean, see, here's the thing about Beckem. You can't play this game now and think you're Mr. New York and all that garbage, and then basically run and hide when you have to, basically be a man and answer the questions. You can't have it both ways. You can't. I know that you're an acrobat. The whole world loves you, but you cannot just basically not take any responsibility for that awful, awful behavior. You can't do it. And not only that, the Giants can't stop anybody if their life depends upon it. They have a 35-7 deficit. They have a miracle comeback. I mean, literally a miracle comeback. They get themselves back in the game. They tie it, and then they left, obviously, too much time on the clock. And you know what the Giant defense does in those sequences. They never stop anybody. And they didn't stop anybody. They obviously came right down the field, Carolina, easily enough. Cam Newton's playing great. They kick the field goal, 43-yarder, and they win the game 38-35, and all but extinguish, although you never know in this lousy division, but all but extinguish their postseason hopes as far as the NFC East is concerned, which would have been extinguished, theoretically, barring a tie if the Eagles had beaten Arizona last night. But because the Eagles lost, the Giants are still hanging on by a thread in the division. But I'll tell you right now, you're a Giant fan, and I understand, you want to win, and Beckem gives you the best chance to win, and he also had a good finish to the game. I get all that. But if you're a Giant fan, and I don't mean the Giant fan who's 23 years of age, who doesn't know how to act, who doesn't know, never heard of Frank Gifford. I'm not Andy Robustelli. I'm not talking about those kind of Giant fans. I'm talking about the Giant fan who goes back 30, 40, 50 years. I'm talking about the Giant fan who's had season tickets, who went up to the Yale Bowl. I'm talking about who had tickets at Yankee Stadium. Those Giant fans. Go back to the Polo Grounds if you wish. Those Giant fans, they're embarrassed yesterday. That's an embarrassing job by their star wide receiver. And you cannot, under any circumstances, give him a pass. The Giants did. John Mara can't be. No, Mara wants to win as much as anybody. Mara couldn't have been pleased. And he's had his budget. He's had a bunch of knuckleheads on that. Plaxico Burress was no angel either. So, I mean, he's had knuckleheads on that team, but nobody who was like this in a game sequence. I mean, in a game sequence, my goodness gracious. And, can we stop comparing Norman to Mel Blount, for crying out loud? He's a cornerback who's had a good year out of Coastal Carolina. He's not that big a deal in the big picture, for crying out loud. And that Carolina defense got absolutely torched in the second half of that game. Torched. A lot to do with the playoff picture, but the first thing he had to do today was that. Odell Beckem showed his true